There's a lot of things that you've attributed to your grandfather telling you. What are some of those things?
Well, one of the most important things that he taught me was that I could be anything I wanted to be.
He's a straight shooter who is passionate about her family and the NRA's mission.
She was instrumental in the passage of a Florida bill allowing private citizens to carry concealed weapons.
A doctor doesn't write a prescription 20,000 times trying to cure a disease.
In 1995, Marion Hammer became the first woman president of this group. Done.
What is the National Rifle Association?
Yes.
If he does, he's over-medicating and under-treating, and that's what's happening in this country.
I gather you have been very active in trying to get laws passed to permit the carrying of concealed weapons.
Absolutely. 20,000 prescriptions of gun legislation have not cured the problem, and more prescriptions for gun legislation won't cure the problem.
The decade of the 60s is spent for you basically as a mother. Is that
Yep.
right? There was no professional activity or activism per se in that time period for you.
Well, no, that's not true. When the '68 Gun Control Act came along, I was very concerned.
Guns threaten our future. We must question the capability of our democratic system if we fail to act.
The Gun Control Act of 1968, just passed by the Congress and signed into law by the President, grants possessors of certain types of firearms 30 days of grace in order to register these weapons.
What about it angered you?
The fact that people who were elected to represent us were taking away part of my rights because of the criminal acts of other people. And so I fought against that legislation, and my days as an activist never stopped.
Marion Hammer is director of Unified Sportsmen of Florida, the state's most powerful gun lobby.
Once criminals realize that law-abiding citizens are armed and ready to protect themselves, there's a good chance we could see a reduction in our crime rate.
I was volunteering for NRA and working the issue and killing the bills.
22,000 people die every year in this country because of a handgun.
Many people who do not die because they had firearms to protect themselves from criminals.
She was very, very active as a board member in the organization. She was also at the time, and still is, NRA's lobbyist in the state of Florida.
What was the first thing you knew you needed to do in order to begin this affirmative action? I gather this right to carry shall issue movement was the first time you were going on offense, so to speak.
Starting at midnight, the state law widely regarded as the most permissive gun control legislation in the country takes effect.
Marion Hammer, executive director of Unified Sportsmen of Florida, was the driving force behind the law when it was passed in 1987.
How did the right to carry movement, the shall issue movement here in Florida, germinate?
Wayne LaPierre and Marion Hammer decided that we needed to pass some shall issue. So we hatched a plan. It took 7 years to get it passed. If I could pass it in Florida, it would be a model for the nation, and we could pass it everywhere else.
We watched what was happening in Florida, the NRA board did, and of course Florida in many ways was the experimental laboratory for a lot of the national laws that NRA supported over the years.
When we passed right to carry legislation here in Florida in 1987, that was huge in restoring our right to protect ourselves.
When Marion became president, we saw a person of great depth, of great resiliency, of great focus, and I knew she was very clear about what she wanted for the organization.
The National Rifle Association has its first woman president.
And the National Rifle Association's message of support for gun ownership is now coming from a Florida grandmother, the new head of the NRA.
The amount of media coverage that NRA got as a result, and I guess part of it was the media expected NRA to change. And NRA did change, but not in the way they thought.
Hey, how about this? The new head of the National Rifle Association is a woman by the name of Marion Hammer. Not only that, she's also a grandmother.
I may be only 4'11", but when I stand up for NRA, stand up for our Constitution, and stand up for the Second Amendment, I feel 10 feet tall, because I'm standing on the high moral ground of freedom.
Obviously, Marion's place in history will be as the first female president of the NRA. But she was more than that. She dug into all different aspects of the organization. She was the person who started the Eddie the Eagle gun safe program, which kids all over the country have now gone through. She was the person who helped shepherd to completion the National Firearms Museum, which is a world-class museum in Fairfax, Virginia. She was absolutely devoted to the NRA. She was absolutely devoted to Wayne LaPierre. I paid a lot of attention to what she had to say and to lessons that were to be learned there.
Some people might consider you an icon of feminism.
I am not an icon of feminism. I am an icon of freedom if I am an icon of anything. It's not about gender. It's about freedom. It's about our Constitution.
I think it's appropriate that Marion be honored in this fashion. She certainly has had a lifetime achievement with NRA, even though her presidency predated the creation of the Women's Leadership Forum.
There's been a lot of talk in the media these days about NRA. We're not terrorists. We're not radicals. We're not extremists. We're hard-working, law-abiding, ordinary Americans. We are people from all walks of life, joined together in a common purpose. And we won't quit fighting to protect the future for our children and our grandchildren. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm proud to be an American, and I'm proud to be a member of the NRA. Thank you.